Hey guys, Buff for Game Bat today, bringing you a video, and today we're actually going to be doing the review of the Call of Duty Cold War, or excuse me, Black Ops Cold War multiplayer beta. So I was participated in week 1 and 2 here since I am on PlayStation and did pre-order, so I did have the early access in the weekend prior that was only for PlayStation. And we're just going to go over my thoughts and opinions of the beta so far and kind of what I'm expecting when the final version of the game comes out here next month. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. And first off, I'm just going to show some gameplay of using one of the AK variants here in the background. You'll see we're going to be using one of the AK variants here on just standard 6v6 multiplayer. Nothing special, just running this short build AK on satellite. We're playing Kill Confirmed here. And just some things that I'll point out here. I'll let the gameplay roll and then we'll jump into this. I'll show some clips out of this. And I'm also going to talk here about the new mode Dirty Bomb. So first off, what I played with Dirty Bomb was the first game mode I played this weekend in the beta. And I think a lot of the things carried over. A lot of things I noticed from the alpha into the beta here that changed. So first off in the alpha, I think the sound was really, really good in the alpha. Footstep audio was great. Directional audio was pretty good. And Gunfire was very clear and crisp, although it didn't sound like comparable to Modern Warfare. However, it was easily identifiable. I could pick out the direction, I felt, no problem. And it was easy to identify where sound was coming from. In a game like this, especially where there seems to be a lot of issues, I see a lot of people complaining about visual cues. Maybe character models don't stand out enough in the background, which seems to definitely be a problem. I can see that happening. However, it didn't catch my eye as much as some of the other issues. But I absolutely think, especially in Dirty Bomb, character models were very hard to see, especially at distance, blended into the background. But we're going to focus on other things in this. So mainly the one thing I would say is audio and directional audio. If you look at footstep audio, I think the footstep was dulled down heavily from the alpha. And that was really hard. I'm somebody that really relies on hearing in a game. I like to play tactically, and I like to hear when people are coming. And in this game, they really muffle the footsteps. It even seems like your character's footsteps seem to be louder than any enemy that's approaching you. There's been numerous situations where enemies could be running very close to me or near me, and I would never hear them until they're almost right on top of me, if I'm lucky enough to hear them at all. So that's definitely a big problem. And then one other issue, or one of the other many issues that I noticed here, is gunfire audio. So when I'm getting shot, it seems like I'm only hearing lasers. It sounds like Star Wars lasers, like a very, very weird noise when I'm getting shot and hit. Almost like a hit marker noise that I'm hearing. It's very strange. And then when I go back and look at the kill cam, the person is not even suppressed. So they're firing a weapon that's not suppressed, and I'm not hearing that gunfire audio at all. What I'm hearing is a weird Star Wars laser beam type noise that's going on, and it's almost impossible for me to tell what direction it's coming from. And then you add in the factor that we don't have good visuals in this game so far with character models. So I could be spinning around trying to find where this fire is coming from because the audio cues aren't there directionally, and also I can't tell what the weapon is, where it's coming from, because it doesn't sound like a gunshot on my screen. But when we go back and watch the kill cam, clearly the guy's firing an unsuppressed weapon. Even if it is suppressed, you should be able to hear that audio, not what I'm hearing on my end. So I'm just going to roll two of these clips, or at least one or two of these clips here right now, and I'll let you hear these in the entirety, and then we'll jump back into talking about this.
Enemy spy plane inbound.
So with those two clips right there, you'll see basically I'm running, getting shot at from a direction. I can't tell where the direction is because you hear that odd noise with the gunfire that's happening on my end. And then we go back and watch the kill cam, and the gunfire is clearly audible on the other player's end. However, on my end, the gunfire is not audible, and also the direction just seems to be very difficult to pinpoint where it's coming from. Now, if you compare this to Modern Warfare, for example, even in Warzone and multiplayer, when someone's firing an unsuppressed weapon, I can clearly, or a suppressed or unsuppressed, we'll use suppressed for this instance. If someone's firing a suppressed weapon, even on Warzone where they could be pretty decently far away, I can hear the visual cue, the audio cues with that, and tell exactly where that gunfire is coming from, what direction. And no, especially if I'm getting engaged, I can tell what direction it's coming from, not just from the indicators on screen in the HUD, but also from the audio cues from the weapon. It's very easy to tell where an unsuppressed weapon is coming from, a suppressed weapon is coming from. A suppressed weapon is not completely silent, and what seems to be a big issue, or a downgrade, I would say, from Modern Warfare to Cold War with the directional audio. However, the good thing is this is something I think they can fix. What I would really like to see here is them buff up the footstep audio again. I know it was a big complaint with modes like Search and Destroy, how footstep audio could really hurt the game. However, I think that's more incentive to use Ghost if you need to, or Dead Silence to muffle those footsteps, which is a perk in this game. And also, I would say if that's really a concern with Search and Destroy, specifically in Search and Destroy, you can bring the footstep audio down further. But for regular core, especially in game modes like Dirty Bomb and the other larger ones like Combined Arms, I feel like footstep audio is very, very crucial because there's so many players and they're running all over the place. You really need those audio cues to understand where players are, where they're moving, and where those footsteps are coming from. And in the alpha, I didn't have this problem. This is something I noticed almost right away. I think on stream on Thursday we played Dirty Bomb here with some of the subscribers, and it's the first thing I noticed was audio. I can't hear footsteps when people are right next to me. I can't hear gunfire. Clearly, I can't get any direction out of any of the audio. So that's one of the major problems that I feel that is my takeaway personally from the beta. Now, if we look at visuals and character models, that's something I didn't really notice it that much. However, I wasn't paying attention to it that much. I was more taken aback by the fact that I can't hear anything to really be paying attention whether or not I can see people in different backgrounds. I know Exclusive Ace did a video on that, and I think he did a really good job highlighting some instances where character models are almost invisible versus or compared to what the background is that you're looking at them against. So that seems to be definitely an issue, which I'm sure will be fixed by the time the game comes out next month. Obviously, this is a beta, and that's the point of the beta, is to beta test it and get feedback from the community in this case and see what needs to be fixed before it goes to a live production version here on release in November. So that feedback, I think the Treyarch will take away, as well as the other studios that are working on this game, and make those changes. So what I would really like to see is buffed up footstep audio. I want to be able to hear the gunfire noise. I don't think that was something that was done on purpose. I think it might just be an issue with maybe connection or whatever the case may be, but I should be hearing the gunfire as it is when it's being fired by the enemy, not some weird laser beam noise. And then you go to the kill cam, and the enemy's firing an unsuppressed weapon that's clearly audible. So that's something that I really want to see fixed, and I'm sure it's an easy fix. Hopefully it's identified, and obviously I'll give that feedback as well outside of this video. But those are, I think, my two major negative takeaways. The other thing I would say is not necessarily negative, but I'd like to see improved. But then shifting gears here, I think when we look at the Gunsmith, I noticed the Gunsmith is actually very interesting. I do like it, and I like to see the ability to preview weapons like we can here in Modern Warfare, rotate them, inspect them, etc. That's something I really want to see. There's a lot of unique attachments for some of these weapons, and we'll take the AK-47 for example. There's some odd barrel length for the AK-47, which seems to be non-existent, I would say. There's a couple different barrel lengths, like a 16.5 and a 15.5. Mainly I'm going to focus on a 15.5, is a barrel length that, to my knowledge, never existed on the AK-47 or the AKM. Not even the later series, like an AK-100 series. Especially if we're going to compare it to that, I think that series of weapons didn't come out till mid to late 90s and was in service in 2001, and we're looking at the 100 platforms of the AK. So there's definitely some discrepancies versus the real-life version, which is completely fine, in my opinion. I think Treyarch typically does. It's not Modern Warfare. It's not supposed to be 100% realistic. And again, a lot of these are supposed to be experimental, so I completely understand that. Just as something to keep in mind when you're playing this game is that you're not going to be able to build 100% accurate real-life builds like we can here in Modern Warfare in our weapon conversion series and things like that. So there's absolutely some, but a lot of them are going to be experimental, and obviously that just, given the timeline or the time frame where this game takes place in the early 1980s, that allows them to make changes to these weapons that allow you to kind of experiment and do things that make weapons that may have not necessarily ever made it to production. So I understand that, just something to tune your aspects or what you're expecting from the Gunsmith in this game. However, there are some really unique attachments that I do enjoy, and I think you can really kit out some of these weapons pretty interestingly, specifically the AK. You'll see in that gameplay on Satellite, I'm using a 15.5-inch barrel. And I mean, it's definitely a lot of fun to use. Kit it out as realistic as we can. We have a dovetail mount on this weapon. It's fun to use, and I think it's an interesting barrel. And again, it just reminds me more of a AK-104, which is the 7.62x39 variant of the AK-100 or the AK-103. So they have the 103, and then the 104 is a short-barreled variant of it that comes in real life around 12.4 inches. In this case, it's 15.5 in the game. However, the AK-100 series, like I said, didn't really exist till 2001, but that's why it's experimental, so I guess that's pretty interesting. It's a cool takeaway. However, the receivers and everything are all not really accurate for, I believe, what they would have been in the 80s, because we're using a basic AK-47. We don't have, it's Stanford versus milled, etc. But, again, that's just me nitpicking. Now, focusing more so to the positives. I think the game itself is a lot of fun. I know a lot of people were saying it reminded them of, like, the Battlefield Bad Company series. Personally, I don't really see that. I played Battlefield Bad Company 2 professionally, and I'm a big Battlefield guy myself. Big fan of that series. That definitely has a special place in my heart. Didn't really remind me of Bad Company series whatsoever. I guess it kind of had a similar feel in some regards, but it really felt, you know, it feels like Call of Duty to me. Didn't really feel too Battlefield-like, but the main takeaway is the game is a lot of fun. You'll see, I'll shift to the gameplay here. I had in Combined Arms Assault, I believe it was, where you have basically a couple objectives that switch on and off. So there's one objective at a time, and each team has to rush to try and take that objective. And this is really the first, I think, one of the first games I played in the second weekend of the beta. And I just used one of the base classes, the Overwatch class, where you get a nice M16A2 here. And I kitted this thing up. Again, I didn't have custom classes unlocked at this point, so it just came as it was as a default class, the Overwatch class. And I went 59 and 13 my very first game of the beta, just really picking people off from not even a long distance, but a decent distance, maybe 100 meters if that. And you'll see in that gameplay, I'll let this play out for the rest of the video, but again, just wrecking people with this M16, probably one of the best guns in the game, in my opinion, from the beta at least, if you're going to be engaging from distance like that. And the good thing about that class is you have a Spaz 12 on sling here to swap out for any CQC engagements. It makes it a really deadly combo, and I had a lot of fun playing this mode here. Now, I didn't necessarily play the objective 100% on this particular game. I did on others, but on this game, I was just trying to experiment with the weapons, see how they handled. And the M16, obviously, this particular build here, you want to use at a distance, so that's really what I was trying to do. It is called Overwatch class, so we want to try and gauge from a decent distance so we can kind of pick enemies off. And you'll see me do that as they're coming in here to try and get these objectives. I'm just wrecking these guys. And I think I went through all my score streak loops like 3 or 4 times, if not more. And again, those are just the default score streaks. If I had my custom ones equipped at this point, I would have easily had the chopper gunner a couple times probably. But this was a lot of fun. I had a good time playing this. I think on this particular map, it's pretty easy for me to see people. I didn't have any issues seeing people on this map. However, I didn't run into that problem, or maybe I didn't even notice. I know Exclusive A's in his video looking at visuals, he had a couple of examples on this particular map. But again, myself, I didn't notice it. But I had a good time on this map. I think it was fun. Played much better than regular Combined Arms, where you have to, it's basically your Conquest version of the mode, where the map is just way too big. On this particular version, the Assault version, the map is almost, I would say, the objectives are centralized, and you're all rushing there. So that everyone's going to be in one central location. You don't need to worry about running around this enormous map with a limited amount of players, which made it a good time. There's really nothing bad, I would say, about this particular mode. So my main takeaway of the beta is I think it was pretty good. There's a couple of improvements I want to see, and I'm sure they're going to make those. They have a little under a month to make those changes, which I'm sure they've already made plenty of them at this point. And I expect to see a lot of changes come final release as far as audio and visual things are concerned, as well as whatever new weapons we're going to get. So obviously in the beta we had limited weapons. I believe it was 3 to 4 per class, depending. A lot more weapons to come, I'm sure. There's going to be more in the actual release of the game. We're not going to see everything here in one spot for the beta. They're not going to give all that away. Same as with Modern Warfare, we didn't see all the weapons right off the bat in the beta. We saw some, but not all. So hopefully, I'm sure there's going to be more weapons than what we have here. And the Gunsmith, hopefully that will return. Now, the big thing is, how is all this going to integrate with Warzone? And we really don't have any details yet. We're going to wait and see. I'm hoping, and this gives me some excitement going forward for Modern Warfare 2, is since we'll use the AK-47, for example, we have these short barrel variants, like the 15.5-inch barrel we'll take, for example, here, which looks even shorter than a 15-inch barrel. It looks more so like around the length of a 12-inch barrel, 12.5-inch barrel like we would see with the short barrel 100 series. So hopefully I'm thinking maybe that'll be added into Modern Warfare so it can be integrated with Warzone, since Warzone, I believe, is going to be running on the same engine as Modern Warfare as it is now. There's not going to be a Cold War version of Warzone on its own engine. So if that's the case, I think that'd be really cool. That would kind of make a lot of my conversion wishes come true for the most part if they do add things, different barrels like that, which I'm sure they have them in files somewhere. Just a matter of releasing them. So we'll have to see. I think we've seen a little bit of this started already with this Season 6 here with the RS-700 and the AS Val. Obviously, definitely the AS Val is 1980s weapon. RS-700's been in Call of Duties before. It's also in Cold War. I expect to see it. I expect to see the AS Val in Cold War as well. But that's really my main takeaways. I think audio really needs to be adjusted, but overall, it's a fun game. I'm not as sold as I was on Modern Warfare. Modern Warfare just had this specific hype to it, as Modern Warfare 2, when it comes around in a year or two, will as well. Something about the modern timeline just leaves so many possibilities because there's so many different weapons, different attachments, different conversions you can make. Given the timeline or the time frame here in the 1980s, we're a little bit limited. However, that's where the experimental weapons come into play. So it will be interesting. I'm looking forward to getting my hands on the game when it comes out. Definitely cover the single player and see what we can do in multiplayer and see what kind of different weapon conversions and things we can make. It should be a lot of fun. So let me know down below what you guys think of this. Overall, I'm just going to be honest. I'm not 100% sold on this game. I'm obviously going to get it. I'm going to cover it. But I still, at this point, am having more fun playing Warzone than I am Cold War. But maybe that'll change. However, I'm more of a modern tactical shooter type guy, so Modern Warfare fits that bill for me. However, I will be covering this. I think it'll be pretty fun, but I think the coverage we'll be able to do with this game as far as conversions and things like that may be a little difficult. But we'll have to sit tight and see what happens, what different attachments come from this game into Modern Warfare. That could spice things up a bit and make things a lot more interesting. So I will leave you guys with that. And this is Buffner Gaming with the Cold War Beta review. Till next time, Buffner Gaming, out.